Oh, here it goes, and welcome to the 64th episode of Throwback Hoops. Woody V's in the house. Please follow the show on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. We're available everywhere. And as always, I'm joined by my main man, Robbie Clayton. What's up, bro?
What's up, Wood? It's always good to be back for another week. I know you're looking pretty happy again wearing all that Sydney Kings. That's twice in a row you've been wearing the Sydney Kings, but yeah, rightfully so with them making
Definitely.
the final. So looking forward to have a bit of a chat today about stuff.
All right. Let's kick things off then, man. I noticed you got some classic jerseys there, so why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you're showcasing today?
Probably a little bit of a surprise that we've got to episode 64, and I haven't spoken about this guy, to be honest, because he's definitely someone that I've always liked, someone that I even tried to slightly model my game around, but I don't think that quite worked, but someone that I really like the way he played in that. So, look, hanging over my shoulder today is I'm doing the Antawn Jamison double. So, hanging over my shoulder.
Not Antoine, right?
Well, I was actually looking that up today just before I go into it. So, it was supposed to be Antoine, right? But they made a mistake with his birth certificate. I know all about that as well, by the way. So they actually misspelt it on the birth certificate. So, yeah, it's actually Antoine is the way they want it said, but it's actually spelled so, yeah, it's a bit weird, actually. But, yeah, people can Wikipedia if they don't want to read about it. But,
Sure.
But anyway, so hanging over my shoulder there is these blue Cavs Adidas Hardwood Classics jersey. So a bit of a random one, that one there. And, look, I'll just stand up and show you the one that I'm rocking today.
Robbie's wearing Golden State Warriors number 33, Antawn Jamison. Fun Warriors team as well.
It was good, wasn't it? Yeah, a bit of a random one, this one. He certainly ended up playing with a few teams. So, yeah, just a little bit about Mr. Jamison there. So, he played 16 seasons in the NBA after getting drafted by Toronto at pick 4 in the 1998 draft out of North Carolina. So, people might be thinking Toronto, he didn't play for them. Well, no, he didn't play for them. He was actually traded to Golden State on draft night for none other than Vince Carter. So it was actually a trade I'd sort of forgotten a little bit about there. Look, probably people probably think that Toronto won that one with Vince Carter, but obviously Jamison certainly had some good moments there. He ended up playing with the Warriors, Mavericks, Wizards, Cavs, Lakers, and Clippers. Pretty decent accolades as well. Woods, he was a 2-time NBA All-Star in 05 and 08.
Yep.
He was a 6th man of the year in 2004, All-Rookie second team, and he also had a number of awards in college, including National Player of the Year in 1998. So Jamison's now 46. He works in the front office for the Wizards. He's only one of 2 players, Woods, that has scored 20,000 points and not a Hall of Famer. Can you name the second one? So one of 2 players to score more than 20,000 points and not currently be in the Hall of Fame.
The other player still playing today?
He's definitely not playing today, but someone we spoke about quite a bit when we had Mr. Lee Ellis on a few weeks ago, someone that's around that era that Lee started watching that he's a big fan of.
Ooh.
And I mentioned that Mark Jackson might not like him.
Ooh, Tom Chambers?
Tom Chambers. Yeah, so
Wow.
Tom Chambers and Antawn Jamison are the only 2 players with more than 20,000 career points that aren't Hall of Famers. So he's borderline, isn't he? It's always that Mitch Richmond test that we've spoken about before. Mitch Richmond made it. Certainly some pretty good accolades there when you think about it. 16-year career, 2-time All-Star, but I guess you've kind of got to draw the line somewhere, don't you? But maybe with his college contributions there, that's maybe sort of elevates him a little bit there. But, yeah, I thought that was quite an interesting one there. Now, Woods, of course, I do have a bobblehead of Mr. Jamison as well.
Wow,
so
nice.
A bit of a random one. Actually, it was hiding at the back of the cabinet when I got it out today. So he's rocking that Cavs jersey there. So interesting. Who of all those teams I mentioned with you sort of remember him the most with?
Probably say the Wizards.
Yeah. So as I said, Warriors, Mavs, Wizards, Cavs, and then the 2 LA teams. Yeah, you're probably right. Those Wizards teams with Caron Butler and sort of
Gilbert Arenas,
Agent Zero and all those sort of guys. Yeah. Nice. So, yeah, a little bit about
Deshaun Stevenson, right?
Yeah. So, as I said, someone I wanted to speak about for a while, and I apologise to him that it's taken
Nick Young, JaVale McGee. I remember that team.
Yeah, now we're getting some random ones. Nice. Well, why don't you show us who you're rocking today? I think I know what that one is, but yeah, why don't you
for sure.
that one?
No worries.
The Woods are standing up, rocking the number 5 Sydney Kings throwback Brad Rosen personally signed jersey. I know he was pretty happy about getting that in the semi-final series. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Rosen and also how you got that jersey autographed?
Well, I won't go into all his accolades. We covered that a lot when we had him on the show, but I just thought I'd wear it because, you know, he commentates all the NBL games as a sideline reporter, and he's right next to me every day, every home game. So we've built a pretty good bond, and he always checks out with jersey I'm rocking, and so I thought I'm gonna wear his jersey and get him to sign it. So last week he did, and really nice message from him to me. But more recently, he got bestowed with one of the biggest honors that Sydney King can have, which is a Ring of Honor. And that was in front of a massive crowd, and I think it was the biggest crowd of the season. Actually, it was. And he told the newspaper it was an absolute amazing moment for me and my family. And to top it off, there was a full house at the game. I believe the largest crowd at an NBL game this season. So there's a great atmosphere in the kingdom as well. And he said, I probably feel a bit shocked still, but to be honest, I'm also humbled. So, you know, this jersey is also to not only honor the fact that he signed it for me, but since we last spoke, he's actually, you know, being given this huge honor. So,
hey, what was his reaction, Woods? Because you said he sees you wearing these random Sydney Kings jerseys every time you see him at the game. He must have been pretty pleased when he saw them.
Loving it, right? Because, and he knew as I walked past him, and then like had his microphone, and I held up a pen to him. He's like, "Of course," and comes over and he signs it. And then the people next to me he wrote a private message to you. I'm like, yeah, we know each other, man. You know, so it was really nice.
That's awesome.
And so, on our quest for another championship, which we'll get into a bit later. Okay, I think I'll go easy on the Kings attire from this week onwards. I know I've been a bit of a homer lately.
Well, you'll probably keep wearing it if they end up winning this grand final series. You'll be busting out some more stuff for us.
For sure. So let's get into it. I thought we'll talk about a little bit of NBL to kick off the episode today, right? Obviously, we're in the FIBA window at the moment, but let's look back on the semifinals that just went, right? And then look forward to the finals. Maybe let's start off with...
Can I quickly ask you, so can I confirm the first half of the show we're going to talk NBL, and the second half of the show you're going to complain about the NBA All-Star Game? Is that kind of...
Definitely going to complain about the NBA All-Star Game. Right. Some aspects of it, right? Okay, so let's talk about NBL. Okay, so let's start off with that first series, Tasmania versus New Zealand. Did you get a chance to watch it? What were your thoughts? 3-game series?
Look, I enjoyed the series, although sort of the reality is none of the games were really that close, weren't they? We saw New Zealand win by 20, Tassie won by 11, and then New Zealand won by 15. So all double-figure margins there. But, yeah, I thought New Zealand looked pretty good. They've got a lot of weapons around the court, don't they? Something we spoke about earlier in the season as well. That import trio as well is just... I mean, we saw Barry Brown in that third game just really took over, didn't he? But, from a neutral point of view, given that, you know, the Wildcats are long gone now, I'm sort of happy that we got this final series with New Zealand and Sydney, because they do seem the two best teams and certainly the two deepest teams, I think, in the NBL. But look, full credit to Tasmania as well. They were obviously playing without their floor leader in Josh Majette there. Thought they held up pretty well there. We saw, you know, some of the bench guys have decent roles. Probably would have liked a little bit more from maybe guys like Will Magnay. Not to sort of pick on him, but he just sort of seemed he was a bit sort of quiet in that series there. But yeah, good crowds in both of those teams' home courts as well, in Tassie and New Zealand. So certainly they were, you know, really making a lot of noise and very vocal fans there. But yeah, no, I enjoyed the series. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, definitely good series, and the top 4 teams were definitely the ones that went through the semifinals. But let's touch on New Zealand a little bit. Gone through a lot over the last few years. Struggled, haven't been able to play at home, been on the road. What does it mean to the people of New Zealand and that franchise to be able to, you know, make it back to the top?
It's huge, isn't it? I mean, they were there for so long, weren't they? And it was sort of, you become accustomed to New Zealand being there in that semi-final or grand final. But yeah, they, like you said, they've had a couple of rough years, you know, not playing at home all of last season, all the COVID implications that have impacted them there. So I think it means a lot. That, you know, they're a very passionate crowd there. They really seem to know their basketball as well. So I think they'll certainly get along. And I'm glad we're getting a 5-game series, Woods. I know you and I probably like to see a 5-game semi-final series.
Definitely, yep.
I'd like to see that, given the finals don't go for too long. I don't know if that's something they may consider down the track. I know some people probably like a 3-game series, but yeah, I think it's going to be a great final series. And yeah, happy to see New Zealand get back to the end of the season like they have.
And what's been the key to their success this year? Is it a change of coach? Is it the fact that they've been able to play more games at home? You mentioned the roster being, constructed really nicely. What's made them so successful this year?
Certainly a little bit of all of the above, I'd say. I mean, the coaching has really been good this year. I wasn't a massive fan of Shamir last year. Thought he had his moments sort of thing, but Mayor's been really good. And, yeah, just like a really deep team, like I said before. I think, you know, the emergence of your boy BMW playing the point there. A great import trio and sort of getting some stuff out of veterans that maybe they wouldn't have thought. So I think guys like Rob Lowe's been really good this year. Getting Abercrombie back this year has been big. Sort of on and off the court for him there. Getting Lee Arthur sort of coming over from Southeast Melbourne's been important for him as well. So, I think they've constructed that roster quite well. And I think, how have they gone against Sydney this year? You probably remember that more than me. I know Sydney won that game when there was a bit of complaint about the All Blacks playing style, but and New Zealand won that game when
New Zealand have won one, I think.
So maybe 2-1 to Sydney, but they've been good games though, right? So
definitely. Actually, that game that we spoke about, Brad Rosen being a sellout in Sydney, that was when New Zealand beat the Sydney Kings when he got presented the ring of honor. Yes, that's the game. I was in India during that game, actually, but that was the one. Yeah. Okay, so all right, that's great about New Zealand. We'll get into how they match up against Sydney in a minute, but let's look back on Tasmania's season. In fact, their last two seasons under Scott Roth, making the finals last year, semi-finals this year. How big is it that they've got such a great supporter base and they've done so well in these first two seasons, right?
Amazing effort, isn't it? The fact that they're constantly filling up that stadium and potentially looking to expand the stadium there. I don't think they've got that budget that some of the Sydney, Perth, Melbourne, and those sort of teams have got. They've constructed their rosters really well. We've spoken about Roth before. He's a great coach there. He sort of creates that family type of environment there. He's good character guys on the team. Be interesting to see what they do next year with those imports. Obviously, I'm not sure if our boy Rashad Tucker will definitely be back. Thought he was good without being great in those finals games. I think they've been amazing effort really to make the semis in their first two seasons, and and obviously, last year they went further sort of thing. This year, they were one win away from making the grand final. So, full credit to them. I think they're a fun team to sort of watch and sort of a good story to sort of support, right? The only thing, and I think we hear this on a few podcasts now, is are you used to the Jack Jumpers name yet, Woods, or what?
Look, I was always a fan of the Hobart Tassie Devils, right?
Yeah,
and
I think it's
been mentioned by our friends, the sport blokes, and various members of the media have said that. Okay, but just looking back, though, at these last two seasons, right, this team is solid. They got swept by Sydney in 3. It feels like they're a team that can make the playoffs, but they're not a championship team yet, right? They need to make a few changes there. You get a guy like Magna, he's a shadow of the guy he was in Brisbane. So they have to make some, looking forward to next season, they're going to have to retool to really, push for a championship, I feel. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think you're right. Look, I just feel like they have nailed their imports pretty well. You just wonder that just trying to sort of secure that local talent, which I think is going to be a big point of emphasis for a lot of these NBL teams now. Correct. You can get these imports, but it's trying to surround the team with quality Australian players. They've got quite role player sort of guys when you're talking about guys like Steindl, Krislovich, these sort of guys.
Daniel.
There's no real standouts. You got guys like Agent 97 and that sort of stuff like that. Again, can they sort of compete with the budget and the glamour teams there that I spoke about before? I'm not sure if they can, but they certainly play with a lot of heart there, and I'd expect them to be, right around this sort of time at the end of next season as well.
Great, thanks, Robbie. And finally, did you see team captain Clint Steindl and his little incident with basically, Tasmania Jack Jumper fan, a young kid, came all the way to New Zealand to watch the final game, and he was in tears. He was really sad that Tasmania got knocked out, and Clint Steindl went and consoled him, gave him his sneakers and everything, and that actually made Good Morning America news.
It did. It was worldwide news.
Right.
That was great to see that, wasn't it? Yeah, great work by Steindl there. And that sort of little fan will never forget that and certainly be a Jack Jumpers fan for life. We know Clint Steindl's a St Mary's alum as well, Wood, so remind me to talk a little bit about that at the end of the show today as well.
Of course, we will. Look, that embodies what the Jack Jumpers are about, right? So Awesome stuff there. All right, now I was able to go to game 1 and 3 of Sydney versus Cairns. A great series, 2 deserving teams to be in the finals on top of the previous 2 mentioned. Now, I can speak about it all day, but talk to me from a neutral perspective. What did you think about that series? And Cairns were unlucky. I think Sydney could have easily lost that series, right? Yeah.
I want to know firstly, Woods, are these rumours true that you were so sure that Sydney would sweep that you actually made plans on the Sunday to actually go somewhere and you had to cancel those plans? Are those rumours true?
Those rumours are exactly true. So I had to convince my wife to go to that game 3. But yeah, go on.
Yeah. No, look, I tend to agree with what you said. I think Cairns were a little bit unlucky. The series did feel a little bit closer. I mentioned the scorelines in the first series there. So the Kings won game 1 by 8, Cairns won by 11, and Kings by 15. So no real close games in either series there. But it felt a little bit went the Kings' way, to be honest. I would have loved to have seen Cairns at full strength. I think obviously people spoke about Pinder. Shannon Scott not being available in those last 2 games was huge, right? That really was a big thing there. We saw Ben Ayre step up, and we saw a few of their role players actually in that series step up. I wanted to sort of throw it back to you and ask 2 things, Woods. It was a very fiery series. What were your thoughts on that? And, a few people saying the Kings were potentially a little bit lucky with some of the calls or, with Suarez not, potentially getting suspended for a game. What were your thoughts on the fieriness of that and also, whether the league got it right with Suarez?
Well, let's start with Suarez there, right? I think even though I'm a Kings fan, he got away with it. He was obviously, it's clear that he intentionally, made contact with the player above his shoulders, right?
Yeah.
And if we're standing to the letter of the law and we follow what happened to Jesse Wagstaff early in the season.
It's a Jesse Wagstaff rule now, right? That's all you can compare it to, right?
So I think they got away with it, a bit there. But in terms of the refereeing, I just find the level of officiating in the NBL, I've spoken about this before, is not great. And I don't think it necessarily favored Sydney all through the season. Maybe this time it did. Sometimes, the apple falls somewhere else, on one side of the tree. And
what about Chase blowing up? Do you think he maybe didn't get too big a fine there because the call that he was blowing up, he was completely right. It wasn't a flop there. I think sometimes the refs have got to have a better feel for the game there. It looked like they were really hot on that rule. You could see that even in the first game there. They called that twice on flopping on the Kings. But, Chase, I mean, look, he does carry on a little bit, but I could certainly see why he would have been frustrated after that call there, given that Kawatanoy was, having blood coming out from his nose there.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, I don't mind Chase being booted out of the game, right? But I think the fair call was not to suspend him on that side. And you look at Cairns in that first game, they had it. They had it pretty much. That first half, they blew us out of the park. Jonah Antonio was going off, and there was a little bit of, speaking on Twitter about, between Chase Buford and Jonah, which was nice to see a bit of back and forth there. But yeah, these youngsters played great, man. And I was talking to Jono Barber, one of our one of the fans of the show and a huge Sydney Kings fan at halftime. We were like, man, we're done. I mean, if we lose here, we'll probably go to Cairns and we'll be swept, right? So we're lucky we stepped up our defense in the second half of the first game and managed to win. But then Shannon Scott going down really, obviously, it was a big loss. Keanu Pinder. Think about it. If you had Keanu Pinder full strength with Shannon Scott as well as, Taj McCall was also playing a bit unhealthy.
Yeah, he wasn't 100%. Yeah. And what about the chippiness of the series there, Woods? There was a lot of things going on there, wasn't there?
There's that Adam Ford history as well, there with the Sydney Kings and whatnot. And I really enjoyed it. There's nothing, it's good for the league, right? It's a good advertisement for the league when there's a bit of that. So I don't mind as long as it doesn't get out of hand. Okay, so let's look forward with regards to Cairns, right? It's always the team where they do a great job of recruiting imports and getting Australian talent like Bull Cole and Keanu Pinder, right? But then they get priced out, and the next season, one of the bigger teams offer more money to these guys, and they lose that talent that they actually nurtured, right? And we know that Taj McCall's already on contract. Guys like Pinder and Bull Cole, will Cairns be able to retain their services?
It's always a big question for that, isn't it? I think a lot of them like the lifestyle there, and it does seem to be a pretty close team. I wanted to quickly ask you as well, what's your thoughts on DJ Hogue? I thought he was a little bit disappointing in this series. I've heard a few people say it was just might have been a little bit of fatigue with the amount of games that they've been playing there. What were your thoughts quickly on that before I answer your question?
Definitely, and you're playing a 7-man rotation, and Shannon Scott's out, Pinder's out, McCall's playing it. You're asking for a lot from him, and that's been the case for a lot of this season, right? Where the rotation's been been short, and they've always been missing one guy. So sure, of course, a bit of fatigue. At the same time, you need your running mates there with you. I don't want to fault him too much because he does give 100% every time he steps out on the floor.
100%. But look, in terms of their roster and everything else like that, I think it's constructed pretty well at the moment. But yeah, you're right. Can they get guys like Hogue back? Shannon Scott. Who did you say was under contract there? So McCall,
Ben Ayre. I think
there's not much else, is there?
Jonah Antonio. I think Sam Wardenberg might be as well.
Well, I mean, he's got to be a priority, doesn't he? Because, I mean, he obviously counts as a local player, the Kiwi there. I mean, he really stepped up there, didn't he? without Pinder, I thought he really showed a lot there. So
I might be wrong, but I think there's a team option for Wardenberg and for Antonio, and McCall and Ayer are signed up through next year. Everyone else is
I mean, look, I'll certainly keep the faith in their recruitment there. They, like you said before, they always seem to nail it with these imports. I wish I could pass on a few tips to my Wildcats there. They just seem to consistently pull out these guys that, maybe aren't massive household names or guys that have had, a few guys like McCall have had NBA experience, but they seem to get it right, and they do surround it with, pretty decent Aussie talent. So Pinder's probably the big one, isn't it? Can they get him back? There's going to be teams, surely teams like Melbourne and Perth will be throwing big money at him.
And overseas.
Of course, yeah. Will he sort of decide to go to, somewhere like Japan, where we're seeing a lot of these Aussie guys go to and potentially get paid triple what he get paid in the NBL? These guys have got short careers, Imagine the same thing, Woods. Imagine you could earn what you're earning, or you could go overseas and earn triple. I mean,
I'm with you.
Good lifestyle, going to a decent country like Japan and stuff. You can see why they do it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Well, let's look forward then to the finals, right? We don't have to break it down. Obviously, there's a bit of time between now and the finals.
It starts in about 6 months, is that right?
It starts on the 3rd of March, I think. Yeah, okay, I just got my tickets the other day. Give me a prediction, right?
Hopefully... Maybe this is more hopeful. Maybe this is
give me what you want to happen and what do you think will happen. All right.
Well, I'm going to say both. I'm going to say New Zealand wins in 5. So I'm going to say that means obviously New Zealand winning a game 5 on Sydney's home court. We spoke before. We did see that happen previously. I just really want to get a good series. Like we mentioned, the semi-finals, the closest game out of the 6 games was an 8-point margin there. So hope we get some really tight sort of contests there. Hope the refs let them play a little bit as well. Don't sort of worry too much on flopping and sort of, guys getting in foul trouble. But I'll say New Zealand 3-2 would be my prediction. But what about yourself? Don't say a sweep either.
Nah, Kings in 4, I would say.
Kings in 4. Okay. Yeah.
But
how worried would you be if New Zealand were to come out next Friday and win that first one in Sydney? You'd be pretty worried. Very worried. So it's a big, crucial first game, I guess. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. I guess it'll give Xavier Cooks, and we didn't mention that Xavier Cooks with that ankle injury in the Cairns series, which actually had me scared for a few days because we didn't know until game time if he was going to play or not, and he did suit up and he looked good. So he'll have time to rest that ankle.
He could probably conserve a bit of energy though by not complaining at the refs at every quarter. That might sort of give him a bit of energy in the fourth quarters, but yeah.
All right, so we were talking about retooling and for various different teams. You mentioned your Perth Wildcats. So I know all these teams are looking to go into that free agency period and reconstruct their rosters for next season. Let's just talk a little bit about your Perth Wildcats, right? What do they need to do next season? Give me a few insights into what you think should happen. Right?
Well, Woods, I'm always happy to speak about my Perth Wildcats. I appreciate the opportunity. So, look, the first one, and I did sort of briefly mention St. Mary's earlier. I think that's going to be a big key there. There's a St. Mary's combo there, and Alex Dukas and Kyle Bowen. 2 guys that I was actually lucky enough to commentate when St. Mary's took on my Hills Hornets last year. So those 2 guys would be massive coups for the Wildcats to get there. So I reckon that should be their first priority. We've heard a little bit of that mentioned. Danny Mills has sort of mentioned that they've definitely been tracking those, and that could be a priority there. So I think that'd be huge. That's where I'd be sort of starting there. Look, we're hearing, as we do every year, Nick Kay, John Mooney, these sort of guys, but it feels like it's just an annual thing that we hear about these guys now. So if I was the Wildcats, I'd be trying to get those young guys, get some good young Aussie talent there. I think both of those guys would translate really well in the NBL. Obviously, Dukas is the biggest sort of name there, but someone like Kyle Bowen's really handy rebounder and great defender and everything else like that. So that's just what they need there. In terms of who they've got there, I think it probably a big call is on the Websters. I know there's team options for those. Are they considered like a bit of a package deal now? Could they potentially just look at getting one of them? I'm not sure how that'll work there. We know that Blanchfield's definitely come back. He's got 2 years left on his contract, and a little bit of a strange sort of one there, but he will be back. They can't just let someone walk like that. We know Zunic as well is definitely under contract. I have a feeling with Jesse Wagstaff, it'll come down to his call. I think they'll sort of say to him, look, we'll give you another year. We like what you did. I think he gets on pretty well with John Riley. So I'm probably leaning towards thinking he may come back. I was actually thinking in those last few games, is this goodbye for Jesse? I wouldn't be surprised if he does come back. But, yeah, to me, so just to summarise that, I guess, I think the big call is trying to get those 2 St. Mary's players there, get them back home. We don't seem to get a lot of those guys coming home. We've spoken about that before, coming back to West Australia, being around family there. So trying to get those 2 guys, making a decision on the Websters, and then just better recruiting of imports next season. I don't think Manic or Thomas will be back, to be honest. So it'll be getting 2 fresh imports to play with Bryce Cotton, who's, let's face it, will always be an import. He's that citizenship thing's just not happening there. So, yeah, getting the two St Mary's guys, making that call on the Websters, and then getting some decent imports. So that's where I'd go with the Wildcats in the off-season.
No, that's fair. And I think that Todd Blanchfield has also come out in the media and said, look, I know I lost my spot in the rotation. I'm going to work really hard this offseason to try and get back into that. So that's a nice attitude for him to show, right? So
we don't always all of a sudden forget how to shoot, right? We know the guy can shoot. So, yeah, I believe he does have a pretty hard, good work ethic there. I know we're going to think he's in a team that we're going to speak about quickly after this one now. But, yeah, I'd like to see him get back in there and just show us what he can do there and just make a contribution to the team next year.
Yep. Okay. Well, that was a good segue. So we have these Boomers, the Boomers games coming on, the qualifiers, right? Yeah. And there is a break, as we spoke about. I'm just going to read the team out to you, okay? And I want you to give me your thoughts. So we got Nick Kay, who you just mentioned, Todd Blanchfield, Isaac Humphreys, Mason Peatling, Reese Vague, Alex Toohey, Daniel Greta, Nick Marshall, Kyle Adnam, Nathan Serby, Mitch Norton, and Mitch McCarron.
Yeah, look, I'm certainly hearing it called like a D team sort of thing. We should mention as well, a lot of people are complaining about the NBL Grand Final Series starting next week. That's not their choice. It's basically a FIBA break there that's mandated by FIBA, so they couldn't actually play any games this weekend, hence the reason for the game starting later. Yeah, I mean, it's not the greatest roster there. I mean, Nick Kay is probably the only one you mentioned there, Woods, that might be a regular part of like an Olympics next year, potentially, do you reckon?
Yeah. I mean,
I think so.
It's going to be an uphill battle for him to make it.
I think he makes it. I think he's someone that they have to put in that team. But there's a few guys. It's good to see a few of these guys getting opportunity, right? You mentioned Kyle Adnam, right? Mason Peatling, those sort of guys. Yep. So look, I think either way, you could probably, without being too harsh there, you could probably throw out one of the better NBL 1 teams and still win that international game for Australia there. But no, I don't mind it. Give some of these guys a go and see how they stand up to international basketball.
And just quickly, Mitch Creek, I know Boddy had a bit to say on Twitter about him being left out of the team. Has there been a black line put through his name forever?
Yeah, I'm wondering that. I believe Andrew Bogut spoke about it recently on his pod as well. I'm just wondering for sure, do we know that that's the case there? Did he not maybe say to him, look, I've just finished the season last week. We went to the play-in game. Body's a little bit banged up. So I'm not 100% sure about that. But, yeah, I'd be interested.
I hear he wanted to play through the grapevine.
That's
I might be wrong. I don't know
if that's
the
case.
Well,
yeah, I mean, if that's the case, you'd really have to wonder whether he's been sort of blackballed there. Because, I mean, you would have thought on paper and the way he played last season, he would have been potentially the first guy chosen on that roster, wouldn't you? So it's interesting, isn't it? You've got a guy that's in that sort of form with his experience that's potentially wanting to play and not making it there. We know there's been some off-court sort of things in the past that have maybe happened with him. But, he seems to be a guy that's very well respected these days. We saw him, in the commentary booth doing all that sort of stuff like he did this year. It's an interesting one, isn't it? We'll have to sort of see if he doesn't get picked for the next lot of these games, then we know probably something is going on.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you spoke earlier about, do you think Nick Kay is going to make the team and whatnot? I think what we can do as an exercise is sit down and choose our team for the World Cup, right?
Yeah,
next little bit of time and see what names we come up with, because that's going to be an interesting selection. All right, let's move on. I want to talk about the NBA All-Star Weekend. All right, let's get right into it. One by one, let's start with each event, and then you let me know what you think. All right,
I'll let you have your say at the end, right? Yeah, celebrity game. Look, I've got to say, Woods, I was at my oldie's place on the weekend when this was on. Didn't actually have the sound on, so a couple of times I looked up and I'm sort of squinting at the TV, and there was one stage I'm like, I don't know any of those people on the court, like not one person. So it's a very loosely sort of thing, celebrities. I heard someone say, I think it was PTI, unless you're under 30, you probably don't know who most of these guys were. I was happy to see DK Metcalf. I'm a huge NFL fan. DK is someone that I always try and get in my fantasy team each year. So it was good to see him. You can see he's just a natural athlete there, a little bit of a bull in a china shop there, but just threw down about 5 dunks there. But yeah, didn't think much of it, to be honest. Like I said, pretty loosely sort of termed celebrities there. But I think you saw a bit more of that. So what were your thoughts?
It's a fun day for the families and everything. And, people are all mic'd up. And, Ranveer Singh, an Indian actor, was there.
Yeah.
So my mum noticed that. So it's nothing too serious. There's a lot of things in that game that raise money for charity. So it's a nice, good vibe event. And I don't mind them keeping it going forward. And as you said, Metcalf, what an athlete, man.
Yeah,
MVP.
Right? He's that sort of player. You look at his body shape. When he stops playing, he'll put on about 10 kilos the next month, I reckon. He's just got that body shape that when he's not working hard in the gym, he will blow out that guy. But yeah, what an athlete.
Very humble, nice man. I liked him as well. All right. The rookie challenge. Obviously, we had the same format as last year, where we had the teams play each other in semifinals and then a finals format. Did you get a chance to watch those games?
Saw most of that. This is one of those events I do like. I know we mentioned it last week. It was something that I quite enjoyed last year. So I think keep that going. You've got a bit of momentum with that. I like the way they do it. Seeing the different coaches they had picked in that. The guys seemed like they were going a little bit harder than certainly the
way harder
on Monday.
Way harder, right? Yeah. They actually cared,
Yeah, and it was good sort of seeing some of these younger guys, seeing them on that stage. It was good to see the two Aussies, wasn't it? And Mojave King,
For sure.
And Josh Giddey. What did you think of Josh Giddey's outfit that he rocked up in?
Oh, loved it, man. Loved it. He's got that drip. He was saying that, he's been influenced by SGA, right? He's been hanging out with SGA.
He's a well-dressed man, SGA.
Yeah, and SGA's, got the beautiful girls, the beautiful clothes, and he's been influencing Josh to with his drip and his outfit. So I liked it, man.
What about Mo King as well, though, Woods? How do you sort of see him going? Because he was someone that wasn't really doing much in the NBL. He's gone over there, played pretty well in the G League there. What do you sort of see the future for him?
Look, I mean, he's obviously made this game, right? I haven't really followed what his stats have been like in the G League. Have you?
Not a whole lot, but he's obviously decent enough to get invited to that weekend. So he's gone pretty well, I think.
Well, he found a bad fit in Cairns and Adelaide, but then if you look at behind the scenes, the coach was saying we just couldn't play this guy, right? For various different reasons. So there must be something there, but the talent's there because he was high on draft boards, highly touted, and he was on par with Josh Giddey at one time. So. Let's hope he has a career, a future. They kept saying he's from New Zealand. He was originally from New Zealand, but then adopted Australia as his country, right? They did that with Aaron Baines for 10 years, the American. What did you think of the players being mic'd up as well? Jose Alvarado and Josh Giddey during the game. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, that was pretty funny seeing that. I got to love that Grand Theft Alvarado as well. He was a big part of the weekend.
Great guy.
He's a good sort of story sort of thing. I mean, obviously different than Giddey. Giddey came in with all the accolades, high draft pick and that. But I enjoyed seeing that sort of stuff. It's always a bit of fun.
I liked it that Alvarado went to Donovan Mitchell and said, "Listen, man, I'm going to get the ball and I'm going to hit this game winner, right? You got to buy me."
That's it. He backed it up.
Then he backed it up. So that was great. Yeah. Thoroughly enjoyed that, and the new players in the league are showcased well there. So I think, as you said, they should continue with that, right?
Yeah. Now's where we start getting a little bit critical, I think, right? We didn't enjoy this next one.
Definitely. I mean, the skills challenge. I mean, do you want to take things away, or should I?
I'll take it away. It was really bad, honestly. I don't mind the actual format the way they do it now. Obviously, honestly, what is the deal with these Antetokounmpo sort of thing? Every year we see.
Oh my God, Alex Antetokounmpo.
So Alex Antetokounmpo hasn't played at all. Look, I know we're going to talk about McClung, who still hasn't played a minute this year, but Thanasis Woods this year, he's played 25 games and he's averaging 0.5 points a game. He walks around that weekend like he's an actual all-star himself. Look, some of the shooting in that was just dreadful. I was watching with my daughter and we were laughing at how bad some of their shooting was, and they're all a bit too cool to try and sort of dribble fast. I think the only one we saw was the Detroit rookie sort of stepping up and dribbling around there, Ivy. But Jordan Clarkson was just dreadful.
He had his braids out.
He did, yeah. So and the rookies couldn't make a shot, could they? When they
made one. Okay.
One shot. Yeah, it was bad.
What I got to say is this, right? They actually counted the rookie's bucket after the buzzer, all right? And that shooting challenge, right? Alex Antetokounmpo could not throw a pea in the ocean, right?
Yeah.
Then you look at guys going the wrong way, okay, around the witch's hat.
Can't be that.
There's no penalty, right? Okay, now you've got 3 shots. If you miss them, you can just move on.
Yeah.
What the hell is that? What the hell is that? You don't even have to take the shot.
It was a pretty tough watch, to be honest, wasn't it?
So what? You take 2 shots, right?
Yeah.
And then you just chuck up the third one, you can run.
And
you don't even have to wait if
it
goes in. There's no penalty for going the wrong way. They're letting buckets in after the buzzer. It's an absolute joke, man. And it used to be serious when it was each individual going up against each other. And it used to be, a proper
we mentioned as well, Woods, I think we spoke offline, we were saying we liked that format the other year of the littles against the bigs or whatever they call it. That was really cool, right? Seeing some of these big guys, and they were really putting a lot of effort into showing their ball handling skills.
I don't want to see any Antetokounmpo but Giannis at an all-star game ever again.
That's it.
Right?
I agree.
Ever again. All right? These guys, man. Why are they even anyway.
Yeah.
We won't harp on about it anymore. All right, let's go to the fun part of the weekend, right? The 3-point shootout, man. I mean,
Sunday our time was awesome, wasn't it? It really was good.
Tell me, 3-point shootout.
Well, 3-point shootout. It's probably my favourite event every year. Watched it at home with a big Buddy Hield fan, my daughter, so she was a little bit sad. He actually made the most shots in that final round, but he just couldn't get those starry balls, as they call it, worth the 3-point shot there, and Dame made both of his. But, a couple of sort of call-outs I thought from that. Tyrese Halliburton's first round, I've gone back and watched it a couple of times. He was just on fire, honestly. He's probably got one of the strangest styles out of any of those players in there, right? But, geez, he got on song there. And the other one for me was someone that I thought might have, featured towards the end was Kevin Red Velvet Herter there. He was absolutely dreadful. It was one of the lowest scores I've seen. He was ice cold in that. I kind of felt for him a little bit. He was sort of on that big stage in the bright lights, and he just couldn't get a shot at all there. But no, I like the format of that. That's the sort of thing. Just keep doing what they're doing with the 3-point comp. You don't need to make too many changes. Didn't mind those 3-point balls there. We see guys with the range now, and that obviously suited Dame there. But look, Buddy's won it before, so it was kind of good to see Dame get to the end and win it there. I think he's basically retired now. He said he won't do the event. He's got it on his resume now. But, I enjoyed it.
It's an actual honor to win that event. It's got a rich history. You talk about Larry Bird, Craig Hodges,
Steph and all those sort of guys.
Steph, Sean Leonard, I even remember, Jason Capono, all these guys. You remember all of them, man. Dirk Nowitzki, man, Cat, your boy. Like, it's a prestigious event to win. I like it. They should keep it going. And
it was exciting too. Like, and we saw Dame actually won it on the last shot there, so you can't get much more. I was sort of standing up, looking at the screen, cheering it on. So that was probably my exciting moment.
Hey man, I haven't been able to make it 3 in ages, man. I was thinking the other day, maybe I should start jacking them up like Tyrese Halliburton myself.
Do you think you'd get more than Kevin Herter if you did that shootout? Or?
Possibly. Yeah.
I think you would too. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, one event which is really reignited this year and everyone really enjoyed was the dunk contest. Why was that? Tell me.
How did you describe Mac McClung Woods? You said he looked like someone that you'd see working in Coles or something like that.
In Coles checkout.
Made me laugh. The Coles checkout sort of guy. He was incredible, honestly, absolutely amazing. I've gone back and watched that quite a few times.
So why don't you just tell the audience who participated in it? Who are the
you put me on the spot now. So we got Trey Murphy, right?
Trey Murphy. Yep.
Trey Murphy, Kmart, Kevin Martin, Jericho Sims from the Knicks. He was probably the one that sort of wasn't that great there. He sort of basically tried the same dunk about 3 times. And Mac McClung. So for those that don't know about him, he went to Georgetown. I think he's played 2 NBA games, if I'm not mistaken, maybe one for the Lakers, one for another team. He's on Philadelphia's G League team, and hence he was wearing that Philadelphia jersey. And as I mentioned to you, Woods, I did actually purchase his jersey just because I like getting jerseys of the dunk comp winners. I've got a bit of a collection of those. But, he just took over, didn't he? It was a bit of a shame he didn't get straight 50s. We saw Lisa Leslie being the Russian judge a little bit and not giving him the 50, I think, in his second dunk there. It was good to see my boys Dominique and Jay Crossover judging there. I thought Dominique was very generous with his scores, which was good on him. He wasn't one of these old sort of guys that, back in my day type thing. We saw Karl Malone. We probably won't talk about some of the stuff with Karl
Malone. And who else?
Come out in the media this week. And Dr. J, right?
No. Harold Miner.
Harold Miner, of course, yeah. Harold Miner, who, if they hadn't have put up that title there, would you have known it was him?
No, man.
I would have known it either. Jeez,
he's had some health issues and stuff.
He has. So that was great to see him there, bringing back, the guys that obviously were sort of, did it before sort of thing. So, no, really enjoyed the comp. I think the thing with Mac McClung's dunks as well there, Woods, is he made them all on the first attempt, which just looks so much better, right? Yeah, that's a big thing there.
No misses, man. You got to make your dunk on your first attempt. No second try.
That double pump one he did, the hang time that guy had. I mean, what is he? He's literally 6'1".
Ridiculous.
Amazing.
So I want to talk to you about a previous dunk comp winner. I mean, Derrick Jones Jr., airplane mode as they call him, right? Yeah. He didn't win that. He was runner-up in that very first dunk contest. I think it was 2016 or 17. He barely played. He was in the D League. It was called the D League at the time for the Phoenix Suns, right? Affiliate, right? And the Phoenix Suns barely played a game. He came in, and then that's what people recognized him for. He then went on to win the dunk contest a few years later. But now he's built a really good career off the back of the success he had in the dunk comp. Because a lot of these guys, they don't know, GMs and players and people don't know about them and their skill set, right? but the dunk comp put, Derek Jones into the spotlight. Is Mac McClung going to have that sort of trajectory that Derek Jones Jr. did? Will he
get
an opportunity?
He's a bit of a combo guard there, but as I said, he's only sort of 6'1", but you don't get a lot of point guards that size that have got those sort of hops and athleticism.
No.
I was watching some highlights in the game he played with his Lakers. I think maybe his NBA debut. He was blocking shots and everywhere. He's really fast getting up and down the court. So you'd like to see it, wouldn't you? Apparently, from all reports, he's a very hard worker. They've certainly improved his 3-point shooting. So I think he's someone that's very marketable, isn't he? Someone that I guess a lot of people can sort of see and relate a little bit more to that person, just the body shape and size and everything else like that. So yeah, I'd like to think it would. I mean, I'd love to see him, actually suit up for a 76ers game in this latter part of the year. Not convinced that he will, but yeah, it'd be nice to see that.
Yeah, definitely. And he also took part in that rookie game we saw, right? Teammates with Mojave King and stuff. So he's obviously on the radar there. So hopefully he gets an opportunity. We'll see how that plays out. Now, Robbie, I'm going to give Classic Packs a miss today, running short on cards, and we've used up a lot of time in the podcast. So Classic Packs will be back in a few weeks. Before we end the show, I know you told me to ask you about...
Hey, you're not going to talk about the game. You're not going to talk about the game. I thought this was going to be half of our show, the actual All-Star game itself.
Yes, the All-Star game.
Come on, I thought you were going to get on your
Almost forgot about the All-Star game. Man, ridiculous, right? Come on. These guys don't care anymore. I grew up loving it. We talked about Lee Ellis and with Lee Ellis about Rolando Blackman and confidence, baby, confidence, right? People cared about it, representing the East and the West. So I just saw it on Twitter that there was a thing saying maybe they should say the home court advantage in the finals will be dictated by who wins that All-Star game.
In baseball, I believe. But look, ridiculous is probably a good way to sum it up. It was really tough to watch, wasn't it? I think it comes down to a lot of the players' mentality these days as well. They're all mates growing up. There's no sort of killer instinct. The actual format of doing this schoolyard pick thing half an hour before a game is just ridiculous, honestly. I don't know who came up with that idea. Who sat around in a meeting room with these NBA officials and they're like, that's a great idea. Let's implement that. You've got to, at the very least, play East versus West. There was always that little bit of, rivalry with doing teams like that. There's been a few people mentioned, should they do the US against the international? To be honest, I'm not sure if that format would change either. But yeah, something's got to give, right? Because I don't know how much more lifespan this actual game's got, because there's been so much negative publicity about this game. It's supposed to be the big event. I think everyone was on a bit of a high with the great 3-point shootout, the dunk comp, which seems like it's back a little bit. And this just kind of almost left a sour taste in people's mouth.
I can't believe I forgot to mention it, man. East versus West, right? Play for home court advantage in the finals. People will actually care about that. But these guys don't even care. They're just getting out of the way. They're just dribbling up and down and scoring. No one cares. They're jacking up half-court shots, right?
Yeah. Jason Tatum, he broke the record and he hit all those shots. Every shot he got, there was no one within a couple of meters of him, those 10 threes he made. So I expect someone of his caliber to knock down shots like that. So it really was tough to watch. And what were they doing not getting Swiper the Fox a basket as well? I mean, come on. That's an unwritten rule in All-Star games, right? You've got to get everyone on the score sheet. So scoring that many points and you forget him and don't even get him a basket near the end.
Travesty, man.
Yeah, it was bad. That's like I said, I've gone back and watched the 3-point comp and I've watched the dunk comp a couple of times. I had it on my Foxtel thing. I just pressed delete straight away with the All-Star game. I thought I did not want to ever watch that again. That was
I don't ever want to watch another one again until they make some changes so that. And I thought, let me give it a chance. I haven't actually watched it for the last 4 or 5 years, right? I thought, let me give it a chance this year.
Yeah, at least there was some close ones, and there was, this was as bad as it gets. So certainly don't bother if you haven't.
How many free throws were shot in that game? Were there any?
I think there was 4 free throws and barely sort of any turnovers or anything. It was just run up and basically shoot it. But like you said, when they're doing these half court shots and stuff like that, it's just ridiculous, really. Yeah. Is there any other way to revive the game, though, Woods?
That's the only way I feel. Make it count towards home court advantage in the finals for the conference. That everyone's playing, for something, right? Yeah. That's the way to revive it.
You can't go back and do this format next year. I think.
How do people enjoy this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Don't do that. That's the thing. Yeah.
All right. So where I went to before, I know you asked me to mention St. Mary's to you, as we spoke about St. Mary's earlier with Clint Steindl and whatnot. Why was that?
Of course, yeah. Well, not just because I was talking about the Wildcats need to get a couple of their guys. We've actually got a big show next week. So we've got the St Mary's commentator, Brian, coming on the show. So he's a guy I actually got to meet last year when St Mary's travelled over here. Really nice bloke. Been really sort of generous with offering us some time next week. So we're really looking forward to kick it with him. We're going to talk about sort of some past and present players for St Mary's. For those that do follow the college game, I believe they're ranked number 17 in the whole nation at the moment. They're playing really good basketball. I think they're in action again Friday. So yeah, obviously the West Coast Conference gets a bit of airtime over here on KO and ESPN and that, but really looking forward to that. So I was going to say to you, Woods, we might need to choose some St Mary's alums next week to rock with our jerseys. So that'll be easy, right? You've got a lot of choice there. So for those that don't know, you're talking, Paddy Mills, Delbadova, Jock Landale, my girl Lauren Nicholson played over there. I might even surprise you and come out with a Clint Steindl one there, Woods, because I actually spoke with St Mary's coach Randy Bennett when I was commentating. He was a big fan at the time when he had Clint Steindl there. He's one of his favourites there, I think. So, yeah, really looking forward to that. I just wanted to say before we do wrap it up, Woods, as Hawks fans, there was a little bit of big news, I should say, at the time of recording, Wednesday, the 22nd of February. We let go of Nate McMillan today. So just before we wrap up, what were your thoughts on that? Did that surprise you or not really? Not really.
I mean, coaches often, if they have an issue with their star player in this league, that's generally is a problem. Player empowerment's a big thing, and players make, they have a lot of power. In these situations, I think it was an untenable situation between Trae Young and Nate McMillan, right?
I didn't think he'd been coaching great this year. I mean, everyone will sort of put all the blame on Trae and that, but this is a guy that's come in with a defensive mentality and mindset there. And Hawks are regularly giving up 140 points, and that's not all Trae's fault there. I mean, their defense has been woeful. He doesn't seem to have much of a plan B. So we see Joe Prunty taking over there. He's the interim tag at the moment. So I've heard a couple of names there, Schneider being one of the ones. Who's the guy that used to coach the Nets? His name's forsaken me now, with Golden State now. Kenny... Alan Woods, help me out.
He's with Golden State.
Yeah, Atkinson, is it?
Kenny Atkinson. Yeah.
So Kenny Atkinson and Schneider. So I said Kirk Schneider, Quinn Schneider. They'd be the two that I'm sort of hearing now. So he's got the interim tag on him there. So interesting to see whether they just decide to stick out with him for the year, because the Hawks are coming 8th at the moment. They get on a bit of a run there. They could easily get up to 6th there. So it's perhaps not as gloomy a season as what people are portraying it to be. But yeah, interesting timing, I thought, now that it sort of took place like a day before the games are back on. But yeah, just thought I'd mention that before we did wrap up a bit of.
And Joe Prunty, a good friend of Nate McMillan as well. He's worked with Popovich in championship-winning teams.
Yeah, he's won
Milwaukee Bucks.
He's won 3 championships as an assistant. He's actually coached 3 games of the Hawks. Woods last year, I think, when Nate McMillan and the assistant head coach, lead assistant at the time, Chris Gent, both had COVID there. He went 1 and 2, so he does have a win already so far. So he's been the lead assistant this year. Good luck to him, I guess. I'll be seeing how they go in that first game. And I've got that new coach theory in every sport. So if you're a betting person, bet on the Hawks to win that first game, because they always seem to win when a new coach comes on board.
And when Milwaukee let go of Jason Kidd all those years back, he stepped in to that head coaching role. And, people like Malcolm Brogdon, Giannis, Delhi himself was on that team, have spoken well about him as a head coach.
Should say former coach of Great Britain as well there, Wood. So he coached them for a number of years there. So interesting. Interesting. There.
All right, Robbie, just before we finish up things, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about where we can be found and followed and all of that? Yeah.
Sounds good, mate. So, of course, on Twitter, we're at Throwback Hoops. I know Woody posted the jersey pictures from last week of Corey Maggette and 3D Dennis Scott, so we'll keep those sort of things going. We're on Instagram, throwback.hoops, and, of course, our email address, throwbackhoopspodcast@gmail.com. What about Woods? You got any shout-outs or things you want to talk about?
Yeah, Patreon. We really appreciate everyone's support. Can't thank you enough. Look below on the screen. You can also see all our handles that Robbie mentioned earlier. And big episode next week, man. Really excited.
Looking forward to it, So, look, we probably won't be talking much NBL next week. We've sort of done our previews. Obviously, there's not going to be any games this weekend to recap there. But, really looking forward to have Brian on the show and sort of talk about St Mary's. If anyone's got any questions or any topics they want us to talk about there, we gave you the details before. But, looking forward to see his take on that sort of Aussie culture with St Mary's. Talk a little bit. They've got 3 guys all from Western Australia playing on that team this year and playing well. So, really looking forward to it, mate.
Definitely. Any final thoughts?
Enjoy that sort of week off with no NBL this week. I'm not sure if I'll be watching that international game with the Boomers, but we'll see how we go.
Well, thanks to everyone. And from Robbie and I, peace out.